Hey Pixel fans, Kai here, and today this video is going to be about mixed mapping. First we'll go over what mixed mapping is, why it's useful and why it's needed, and finally how you can do it. So mixed mapping is exactly what it sounds like. Mixed mapping has to do with map making for pixel art, and mixed mapping is important because it helps to break the grid. Now what I mean by this is it's very easy, especially when using 2D graphics, to see a grid or a pattern forming when you're trying to make a map. And these patterns are formed by the seams of each tile. It's very important that we get rid of these seams. By doing so, we're allowing people to get lost in the game instead of looking as if they're walking on a tile-based map. Here you can see the difference between a screenshot of a map using mixed mapping and a map not using mixed mapping. You can clearly see the seams for the tiles that aren't using mixed mapping. This makes it feel like we're walking around on a tile-based board instead of actual grass. So now that you see the difference, let's actually see how we do this. There's a few different ways to do mixed mapping, some easier, some more tedious. So let's go over one of the quickest ways to utilize mixed mapping. My personal recommendation, especially with floors, is to always have at least 3 different floor tiles. Now, this can be different. You can utilize either 2 floor tiles, or even up to 5. If you're using more than 5 floor tiles, you may want to consider going back and revisiting why you need so many tiles. If you find yourself having to use a lot of tiles, chances are you may be able to utilize the tiles that you already have more efficiently. Let's see exactly how we would utilize tiles in mixed mapping. Here I have a blank map. I'll show you how we would lay out the tiles if we were using grass tiles. This is one of the easiest ways to utilize mixed mapping for tiles. Number 1 will be our first grass tile, and then I'll move to number 2. Number 2 would be a different grass tile. Yes, this is an isometric map. However, just because it's isometric doesn't mean that you always have to lay everything out isometrically. You can start to see a pattern forming here. However, once we get all the floors finished and start putting items and characters on top of the floors, it would be difficult to see this pattern. However, it wouldn't be easy enough to see it that people would feel like they're walking on a tile-based board. Consider each numbered tile a different floor tile. Now, this is one way to utilize mixed mapping, and, from my opinion, one of the easiest ways. Let's look at a more tedious way to utilize mixed mapping. If you're familiar with games like Seiki and Densetsu for Super Nintendo, you'll notice how most of their floor tiles don't actually look as if they're repeating at all. It's very difficult to see where one tile starts and where another ends, or even which tiles are repeating. Seiki and Densetsu, or Secret of Mana, utilizes their floor tiles and mixed mapping in this type of way. They utilize 4 floor tiles, laid out like so. Now, this is much more difficult than the one that we originally looked at. However, it's very difficult to see a pattern here. You'll see a pattern beginning to form, such as here, where we have a 1, and then a 3, and then a 1. Of course, the next thing we would do is this. And now there is a pattern beginning to form here. However, utilizing the mixed mapping in this method makes it even more difficult to see the pattern. While this takes a lot of time and effort and is very tedious, in the long run, this style of mixed mapping will probably get you the best result. This is mixed mapping for floor tiles, but of course you can use mixed mapping for just about anything. As you're mixed mapping, just keep in mind, the human brain wants to see a pattern. That's how we help recognize the world, is through patterns. Don't spend too much time trying to completely obliterate the grid. The human brain is going to actually look for a grid and try to formulate one even where there possibly isn't a grid. Spending too much time and using too many tiles to try to obliterate the grid will actually increase memory usage and increase the amount of time you're spending on your maps. Sometimes it's better to keep it simple. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe.